No way, that can't be true. We live together. You just need to sign the divorce papers. Good luck with your less fortunate life. I stood there in shock, holding the phone after the call ended abruptly. The lawyer couldn't help but burst into laughter. Jessica looked at the lawyer with a confused expression, and the lawyer wiped away tears with a handkerchief. The person in charge is actually Linda. My name is Linda. I've been married to my husband, Mike, for 2 years. We don't have kids. Both of us work and are so busy that we often work on weekends. We hardly have time for long talks, leading to a life of passing each other by. So we try to sync our schedules and go on overseas trips during our long breaks. It's just once a year, but we both eagerly anticipate it. When we got married, we decided to buy a condo on an upper floor in a Bay Area tower. It was a bit of a stretch, but we did it thinking about the future value of the property. Thankfully, we're content with our current life. I have a close friend from high school, Jessica. We sometimes have lunch together. Jessica, who is beautiful, has high standards for men. She's not married yet, but really wants to be. She's always searching for well-educated, high-income men on dating apps, especially. She won't compromise on income. One day, I was having lunch with Jessica at a cafe near a park. We've been together since high school and university, even sharing the same classes. That's why we've consulted each other about various things. As a result, we know quite a bit about each other's dating histories and preferences. During our student days, we shared both fun and sad times. Those are good memories. Now, ever since I married Mike 2 years ago, our schedules have gotten busier, and our time together has decreased significantly. We only manage to meet a few times a year, if that. "Hey, can I visit your condo next time?" Jessica suddenly asked. Jessica had never been to my place before. On the weekend, she came over, and even through the intercom, I could sense her amazement at the entrance. Jessica kept saying, "This is amazing." The moment I opened the front door, she looked impressed. "Wow, this place is like a mansion, and that elevator right up was so long." I chose a spacious upper-floor condo as a once-in-a-lifetime purchase. It's even more spacious than a house without compromising. It's beautiful, truly incredible. Jessica looked around, turning her head in every direction. Great location and an upper floor in a high-rise like this must have cost a pretty fortune, she asked with a sly smile. "Yeah, it's what you'd call a $1 million condominium. It has great security too. Look here." Jessica cut me off, reacting only to the term $1 million condominium. "Right, it must be over $1 million. Your husband must be making a lot," she said, eyes wide with astonishment. That was so like Jessica, always having high standards for men, especially regarding their income. "Mike's salary is quite high for his age, I guess," I said vaguely. I felt it was tacky to be too explicit. "Huh." She had a look that seemed to have some ulterior motive. Jessica said, "Can I use your bathroom?" and left the living room. I told her where the bathroom was and then started preparing tea in the kitchen, concerned about Jessica, who was taking a while to return. I was about to head to the bathroom when she came back. "Just replying to an email." Jessica doesn't usually make excuses like that. I felt a slight sense of unease while enjoying the cookies Jessica brought as a gift and having tea. She asked, "Can I stay till evening?" She apparently wanted to greet Mike. Indeed, it had been since our wedding that Jessica last saw Mike. It's not unnatural for her to want to see him. I decided to check with Mike just in case. Mike happily agreed. "I might finish work early," he replied in an email. I told Jessica it was okay. And then I started preparing dinner. Jessica was fiddling with her smartphone but then stood up and headed to the bathroom again. I didn't notice while cooking, but Jessica seemed to be gone for quite a while. When she came back, she was wearing a familiar necklace. I recognized it. It was my necklace. As I gazed at the necklace, Jessica flashed an embarrassed smile. "How do I look? Does it suit me?" She posed like a model. Seeing my stunned expression, Jessica burst into laughter. "Oh, come on, I'm just kidding. I found it and thought it was cute. It must have been super expensive, right? A premium piece for sure." Jessica rambled like a child trying to excuse a misdeed. That's a gift for Mike. Wow, he must be really wealthy to afford something like this, Jessica sighed. But more importantly, that necklace was stored in the closet in the bedroom. Jessica must have pretended to go to the bathroom, and instead went to the bedroom, peeking into the closet. That's what it seemed like. I couldn't believe her actions. However, I didn't want to come off as petty, so I simply emphasized that it was a precious item. Taking advantage of my lack of reprimand, Jessica made an outrageous request. Can I borrow this necklace for a while? I was speechless and fell silent. I've got a date with a doctor I met on a dating app. I want to wear it for that, she pleaded, joining her hands together as if praying. Reluctantly, I decided to lend it to her. All right, but take good care of it. Like I said earlier, it's a gift from Mike. As soon as Jessica knew she could borrow it, she smiled and began caressing the necklace. Of course, I understand. She seemed to pay no mind to my words. When I finished the meal prep, I pretended to go to the bathroom to check the bedroom. Sure enough, the closet in the bedroom and the chest beside the bed weren't fully closed. Jessica must have opened every drawer and door she could find. There were fingerprints on the jewelry, watches, and precious metals. Jessica might have touched things but probably didn't intend to borrow them. The shoes seemed to have been forced on, and the heels were misshapen. This was clearly going too far. I returned to the living room and confronted Jessica. You touched various things in the bedroom, didn't you? The shoes were misshaped, and there were fingerprints on the watch. Instead of showing remorse, Jessica puffed out her cheeks a bit. Please don't do that again. She returned to her normal expression and apologized, saying sorry. I didn't want to dwell on this and risk straining our friendship, so I decided to just lightly laugh it off. That's when Mike came home, holding a box of cake. Mike and Jessica saw each other for the first time since our wedding. It was awkward at first, but they gradually warmed up to each other, making for a lively dinner. By the time we ate the cake Mike brought, they were chatting like good friends. While I was clearing the dishes and washing up, they were laughing together. Really, my boss is terrible, right? I envy Mike's subordinates. Mike was grinning, eyes crinkling with laughter. That's not true. I was a bit bothered by Jessica casually touching Mike. But at the time, I thought it was better than them being distant. After all, Mike wasn't the type of man Jessica usually goes out with. About a month after Jessica's visit, Mike's behavior started to change. He spent more time on his smartphone, which he usually didn't do much. He often seemed distracted when I talked to him and asked me to repeat myself. He always carried the phone with him, even taking it to the bathroom. It was an obvious change. It seemed I had become a cheated-on wife. I thought about checking Mike's phone once, but I was reluctant to even touch it. Conversations between Mike and me at home became increasingly rare. Mike started working on weekends much more. He was hardly ever at home on weekends. Originally, we barely saw each other on weekdays, but now not seeing each other on weekends too. It's like we're living separately within the same house. Moreover, we started sleeping in separate bedrooms under the pretext of his tiredness. I was vaguely thinking about divorce or separation when I found divorce papers on the living room table. Upon closer inspection, Mike had already signed the divorce papers. Though I had suspected it, actually seeing it still shook me. With trembling hands, I called Mike. I just got home and saw it on the table. What does this mean exactly? What it looks like? I want a divorce. I pressed Mike for a proper reason. I've fallen in love with someone else. It's not an affair. I'm serious, Mike said. It was obviously nothing but cheating. Then I heard a familiar female voice on the phone. It was Jessica. Well, it was what I had expected. I'm dating Mike. I even want to marry him. Though I had suspected it, hearing it confirmed made my heart race and brought on a cold sweat. I fell for Mike the moment I saw him at your house. We exchanged contact details and started messaging. One thing led to another, and here we are. Jessica's way of talking had become crude. Maybe this was her true nature. Mike says there's nothing left to talk about. Can you just sign the divorce papers and send them off? I want to talk things over, so please tell Mike to come home. Once eh? No way, we're living together now. You just need to sign the divorce papers. Good luck with your poor life. Standing dumbfounded with the abruptly ended phone call in hand, I couldn't move for a while. After that, sleepless nights continued for me. Mike didn't come home. I couldn't bring myself to touch the divorce papers lying on the living room table. They just remained there untouched. Furthermore, Jessica kept sending me multiple photos of her and Mike together, flaunting their relationship. It must be an intimate relationship, but what kind of harassment is this? My mental health deteriorated, and my complexion worsened. Sometimes I become vacant even during the day. Concerned people around me strongly suggested I go to the hospital, and I ended up being somewhat forcibly taken for treatment. Taking medication, I managed to regain some peace, and I started to be able to sleep. I could somehow go to work. But then an unbelievable incident happened. When I returned from the hospital, something felt off inside the room. Going to the bedroom and opening the closet, I found that bags and jewelry were missing. The count of jewelry watches in the chest was off too. There was only one person who could do this. Why would she do something like this? What had I ever done to her? My insomnia relapsed, and sleepless nights continued, leaving me stumbling through my days. During counseling at the hospital, when I mentioned the theft at home, I was strongly advised to consult a lawyer. I promptly contacted the company's lawyer and set up an appointment. The lawyer asked me first, "What would you like to do?" "I'll get a divorce. I want those two to face proper consequences." I answered immediately, surprising even myself. Just a little while ago, I was wondering what to do. I couldn't believe how easily those words came out of my mouth. Perhaps I really wanted to punish them after being tormented so one-sidedly. It was just about getting back at them. Now, a week later, I received a message from Jessica. I had sent her a certified letter. "Hey, what are you thinking, sending a certified letter to my workplace?" Jessica sounded pretty angry, her voice filled with rage. "You must have expected at least this much. Anyway, I'm leaving everything to my lawyer now." I hung up the phone. Jessica called several times after that, but I ignored all of them. Then Mike called. I had sent a certified letter to his parents' house. Apparently, his affair being exposed at home caused a huge uproar. I wanted to burst out laughing at his self-inflicted predicament, but managed to restrain myself. Feeling that leaving it all to the lawyer wouldn't be enough to calm my feelings, I decided to confront them both. I would denounce them thoroughly on the spot. The lawyer arranged the date and time, and we decided to have the discussion at the law office. A few days later, the two reluctantly showed up at the law office. I thought they would bring their own lawyer, but it seemed they came alone. Jessica stormed into the office, flinging the door open. Mike followed, looking uncomfortable. "Finally, we meet, you coward." Jessica made no effort to hide her anger, but Mike stepped forward, trying to calm her down. "Well, you've been running away all this time. Our wedding's been delayed because of you." Jessica looked like she might throw her bag at me any moment. Mike was desperately trying to hold her back. As I watched them with a pitiful feeling, the lawyer nodded at me. "Please calm down. If any violence or abusive language occurs, we will immediately call the police." Understood. The mention of the police made Jessica stiffen. With the lawyer's intervention, Jessica and Mike took their seats, becoming calmer. We sat across from each other at the office table, ready to start the discussion. "Mike, you're seeking a divorce, correct?" Jessica was sitting heatedly, while Mike slumped, looking small. "We agreed to the divorce. However, since your relationship is adultery, we will ask for alimony. Is there any significance to this?" Mike's face clouded over. "I'll agree to the divorce, but once the alimony is paid, don't contact us ever." I quietly nodded in agreement. Jessica looked displeased. Maybe she expected more resistance from me. When the lawyer began discussing the alimony amount, Jessica snapped. I said any amount is fine. "We have plenty of money." Jessica sat arrogantly with her arms crossed. The lawyer looked at her with interest, saying, "Oh yes, didn't he research? Mike is the president of a jewelry company with a yearly revenue of $2 billion. Mike looked up frantically, trying to restrain Jessica's arm. Jessica, her face flushed, continued excitedly. Alimony for an affair is nothing to us. I'll even give a proper share of the property. Mike was trying hard to calm her down. Jessica shook off his hand and continued, You can barely make ends meet on your salary, right? She scoffed with a laugh. The lawyer burst into uncontrollable laughter. Jessica looked at him with a puzzled expression. The lawyer wiped tears with a handkerchief. Actually, the president is Linda. Jessica was dumbstruck, her mouth hanging open. Mike hung his head, his body trembling slightly. Mike is just an ordinary employee with no position at Linda's company. I am Linda's corporate lawyer. Jessica started laughing loudly. What are you talking about? Are you really a lawyer? Can lawyers lie? The lawyer calmly replied, Why not ask Mike next to you if what I said is a lie? Meanwhile, Mike just bit his lip, looking down. Growing anxious, Jessica grabbed Mike's arms and began shaking him. You said you were the president of a $2 billion jewelry company. That's not a lie, right? Mike remained silent, covering his face with his hands, uttering inaudible moans. Jessica, growing more desperate, gripped his arms tighter, repeatedly asking, Answer me. It's not a lie, right? Mike finally whispered in a raspy voice, I'm sorry. The room fell into deep silence. Jessica's strength seemed to leave her body, and she let her hands that were gripping Mike fall limply. You said you were the president of a company making $2 billion a year, she muttered to herself. Mike's single apology had plunged Jessica into despair. She stood up, trembling. It's a lie, right? There's no way you're the president. Jessica pointed at me accusingly. Why didn't I know about this after all we shared? I spoke to Jessica calmly, as if guiding her. Just because we're close friends doesn't mean I tell you everything, especially since you were so fixated on money. I had no intention of telling you. I looked Jessica straight in the eyes without averting my gaze. Jessica seemed to lose all her energy and slumped down. Then that house, of course. The house is in my name, so Mike will be the one leaving. Jessica fell silent, and Mike continued to hold his head. Mike probably didn't want to come here. He knew this would happen. But if he didn't come here, things would be worse. It's hell either way for him now. The lawyer began presenting the evidence I had gathered. First, these photos of Mike and Jessica together. They were the photos sent to my phone, now printed. The lawyer placed an IC recorder on the table and played the recorded conversation. Why would you send something like this? I just wanted to share our happiness with you. Jessica's voice filled the room while Mike seemed to be holding back tears. Hey, still clinging to the past. I want a divorce. I know what you're clinging to. It's Mike's income. He's the president of a $2 billion jewelry company, right? You hid it because you thought I might take it. Jessica, perhaps embarrassed, covered her face with her hands. Hurry up and divorce and leave that condo. It'll be mine soon. Too bad Mike didn't come back to you. I'll give you as much alimony as you want. Poor thing, your aim was the money, not Mike. I'm speechless at how you've been deceived, Mike. Mike looked down, tears spilling onto his pants. Mike and Jessica fell silent. Do you think this is over? The lawyer asked. What else is there, Jessica? You broke into the house when Linda wasn't there and stole several items, didn't you? I felt relieved at the lawyer's calm demeanor. Mike looked shocked, apparently unaware of this. Hey, what's this about stealing? Jessica bit her lower lip, her hands shaking. No, not me. I don't know anything. The lawyer placed a tablet on the table and played a video. It showed Jessica sneaking into the bedroom, taking bags and jewelry, and stuffing them into her bag. Jessica stared wide-eyed at the footage. What is this? Why are you recording me? Isn't this illegal surveillance? Mike covered his face with his hands. Inside our house always had security cameras. Why didn't you tell me that earlier? Who would think you'd break in to steal? I felt a headache coming on from their foolish exchange. And you used my key without permission. I wanted those things. It's your fault for not buying them for me. The two began arguing, ignoring us. The lawyer and I could only look on in disbelief. Please save your arguments for later. Regarding this theft, we will be filing a police report. Jessica seemed to panic at the mention of the police. The police? That's a bit much, isn't it? I just borrowed something from a friend. I never gave you permission to borrow anything. I spoke to her calmly. Besides, you're not a friend or anything. You were just a classmate. That's why I'm filing a police report. Jessica seemed to realize she was defeated, and her attitude became sullen. Don't say that. I'll pay for it. I'll compensate. Just please don't call the police. Jessica started to kneel and apologize. I looked down at her and said coldly, "You're going to compensate. The value of what you stole is more than your annual income." Are you sure about that? Jessica was speechless. And there's also the matter of the alimony. Jessica turned to Mike, pleading in a tearful voice. You'll pay, right? Even if you're not the president, you still earn well, right? Mike was silent, looking down. He can't pay. He's about to be fired, the lawyer said. Mike looked up in surprise. That's correct. Since leaving the house, Mike has not shown up for work. Plus, with this commotion, there have been complaints from his boss. Mike looked like he might collapse on the floor. But there's still the property division, right? I'll pay with that. That's not possible. Linda and Mike have a prenuptial agreement regarding property. You didn't hear anything from Mike, did you? He never told you the inconvenient truths. I looked at Mike with disdain. The lawyer placed the contract on the table. The agreement states that if the marriage lasts less than 3 years, neither party can claim the other's property. You're currently in the 2nd year of marriage. Jessica tried to grab the document as if to tear it up. You should handle that document carefully. It's a notarized deed, and you could be held legally accountable for damaging it. At the mention of crime, Jessica stopped. She began to half-heartedly plead with Mike. Mike, you have savings, right? Use that to pay. Mike looked at Jessica with resentful eyes. What money? You always wanted sushi, steak, this, that. There's no way I have any savings left. It appears that way, and it seems he has debts from unsavory sources. Jessica's shoulders slumped. It's a pitiable sight. The glamorous appearance that used to make men turn their heads is nowhere to be seen. But this is the result of the seeds she herself sowed. The two sat looking haggard and lost, muttering, "This wasn't supposed to happen, and what will I do now?" I decided to leave the rest to the lawyer and stood up to leave. Jessica, money isn't something you steal from others. It's something you earn through effort. After that, the divorce went through smoothly. I sent all of Mike's belongings back to his parents. His parents kept apologizing to me and even sent a letter of apology. Jessica was interrogated by the police for illegal entry and theft. My police report led to an investigation, and Jessica was arrested after admitting her guilt. Half of the stolen items have been sold, but I got the rest back. Despite the maliciousness of her actions, her show of remorse and intent to compensate suggested she might receive a suspended sentence. However, Jessica had other crimes. It was revealed that she had been stealing from men she met on a dating app. This meant she would likely face a prison sentence. No wonder she reacted so strongly to the mention of the police and crime. Mike couldn't live in Jessica's apartment and moved to an old apartment on the outskirts of town. He's looking for a job, but his unexplained absences and poor attitude at his last job make it hard for him to get hired. He's getting by with day labor for now. I receive regular updates on their situations from the lawyer. After the divorce, I threw myself into work. Now I'm expanding our company's jewelry line to Europe. The idea came after a trip to Europe I took as a break after the divorce. I had the chance to drink wine with the owner of a jewelry store in France. During that time, I spoke fervently to the owner about jewelry designs. At that time, the owner and I hit it off, and he agreed to showcase my company's jewelry in his store. The owner is a wonderful man who, perhaps because of his own divorce history, understands my heartache. To be honest, I'm focusing on sales in France to see him. It might be mixing business with pleasure, but I think I've earned this perk after all I've been through. That's how hard it was for me.